Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. Now, this week we've got a fabulous guest. It's only me and Glenda, so it has to be you, Glenda. How are you today?
I'm really brilliant today, Ryan, but it's a bit weird being at the other side of this process.
Well, I thought it was quite a poignant time to do it at Christmas. Everyone's relaxing, talking about family, well-being and so on. And I also thought it's about time, after 2.5 series, that we got you back on talking about your journey and We Talk Wellbeing and resilience and everything else that goes with your business. The reason being, obviously, I love you to bits and we've been working together for a long while now, but not many people know the amazing work you do in the industry in terms of helping to grow it, drive it forward in the wellness field. And so I think it's really important we have a chat about that. We speak to a lot of people on our podcast about various things and about growing the industry and how the state of it and so on. But we haven't really looked at the impact that you're having at the minute, which I know you're quite modest about it, but let's be honest, it's pretty significant. So I think probably the best thing to do is, I'm not sure we've ever done this with you, Glenda. So do you want to give us a whistle-stop tour of Glenda's career? And then obviously we'll sort of digress slightly into your clubs and any time and how that came about, and then we'll jump into the wellbeing stuff. So who's Glenda?
Gosh, it's crazy looking back in the journey, isn't it? 28 years, Ryan, in what I think is the best industry in the world. So I've only ever had 2 parallel careers, really, which was when I first graduated with a physical education degree and a sports science master's. I did go into education for a while, but I was always an entrepreneur, to be fair. So even when I had a full-time job in education, I was still always with businesses in the fitness industry.
Right.
So obviously over time, I realised that my biggest love was the fitness industry. And I was really fortunate to build my apprenticeship with people like Pulse Fitness, where I would go in and build clubs for other people. And that's really amazing when you get to build your apprenticeship with other people's money, right?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it was just such a privilege. And, you know, I got a very, very strong apprenticeship working with the likes of Pulse Fitness, where we would go into either an existing club or a club that was being built and build out a membership and then leave. So I just don't think there's any stronger way of learning our industry than, you know, building clubs out from the ground up. So that was a really exciting chapter, probably, you know, 12 years in total, building over 200 clubs in the UK market for other people. And, you know, through Pulse Fitness and then later on with my consultancy myself. And an amazing experience, amazing wisdom that you learn from doing that with everyone else. And then when I landed in Jersey, fitness was pretty inconsistent. Quality was poor. In terms of the premium end of the market, it was lacking. And
which is a surprise considering the state of the island. It's hardly the poorest place on earth, is it? So I'm surprised that it wasn't full of high-end fitness facilities.
There was offerings, but it was absolutely not at the standard that I thought that Jersey deserved. And really, back in 2014, something that I think I'm good at is I spotted a gap for the premium end of the market. And I ended up building out, which became Health House, which was amazing because Health House did win 11 awards in its first year. It won Best Newcomer at the National Fitness Awards. So the UK actually did acknowledge the amazing project that Health House was. And then following the sale of Health House, you get the bug, don't you? And at that point, the boutiques were on the rise. Jersey never had one boutique club. But I think where I was a bit cleverer is that I understood very early on that wellbeing was becoming bigger and bigger. And when you joined the boutique high-end offering with a holistic wellbeing solution, it was really ahead of its time, to be fair.
Yeah.
So that was the Soulgenic brand, which to this day, I'm very proud of Soulgenic. not as long a journey as I first expected, but as you know, the rest is history, because I was very fortunate when Anytime Fitness came in and acquired Solgenic.
Well, let's be honest. It's isn't it one of their fastest growing sites in the UK? It's absolutely flown, hasn't it? So you sort of going, the bases. I know obviously they've come and put their colours and everything else on it, but that would never have happened if it wasn't for the fact that they took the Solgenics business where it was and drove it forward. So as much as they've created success at that club, the basis of all of that was developed around what Solgenics was previously. So
yeah, I think it was a massive team effort, Ryan, and I think that that's a message I'd probably give people, that if you're going to look for the acquisition, it shouldn't be a them and us. It should be a team effort, because with them being successful, I'm successful. When I'm successful, they're successful. And I've got to give credit to the owners of Anytime, the franchisees, Steve, Thorne and Connor. Connor, we've got on the podcast in January. An amazing father and son team, and a lesson to give everybody is just their emphasis on quality. So when we actually did the acquisition, they were the perfect match for such a high quality brand as Solgenic. Even although it did move to an Anytime, they maintain a high level of detail and quality, and that's why it works. And being honest, Ryan, the Channel Islands was ready for the second brand. They had fitness first, but that was now a long time being here. And I think the 24-hour USP was absolutely going to fly. We knew it, and the rest is just an amazing story.
Well, they're definitely living off the back of that now. I can imagine it's from what you've said, it's doing extremely well. So you went for that brilliant acquisition, buzzing. The fact that you had, I came on board just around about the time you were selling it, or just before the process was going ahead. And so I saw all the amazing stuff you guys were doing with your clinics and everything else from a wellness point of view. Mm-hmm. And I guess that sale released you to allow you then to really focus on this well-being and wellness. So what made you sort of, because obviously something started that to make you go, well, okay, there's more into this wellness and resilience than what the rest of the world is seeing. So what made you look at that and go, okay, this is where we need to go?
Because really simply, Ryan, and the whole time I had been a club operator and helped people and changed their lives, and I do say that strongly, because our sector absolutely does change lives.
Well, absolutely, 100%.
That's why we do what we do, right? But essentially, from all the experience I had gained, most of the time when someone had a major breakthrough, it was nothing to do with the fitness that our times it is, but in the main, it was some other well-being facet that we were working with them on that allowed the massive breakthrough, right? So I learned very early on that if I could help the person holistically to be able to thrive, not only are they better off, but we absolutely did have higher retention, less attrition, better profit margin. And yes, it's effort, but I always was very passionate that was where it was going to go. I can't understand. I understand staying in your lane, and if all you do is fitness and you are very transparent about that, that's fine. But I think the challenge for me is we know that to be well is so much more than just physical, and for that reason alone, I was already ahead of the curve. I was doing well-being before it was sexy, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's as daft it sounds, well-being in its current and the growth it's having is 12 months old. In reality, it's off the back of the pandemic. People have realised that it's really needed, and it started to really grow. Until then, it's been there, but it's been fairly underground in a strange sort of way. Now, you have a doctorate in resilience, Glenda. So obviously, this isn't a, like you say, you were doing this before it was sexy. But how long ago did you get your doctorate? What made you go and do that? And obviously, you've written books on this as well. So what made you go, okay, I'm a club owner, I've got all this, I want to go and do that side of it as well?
Yeah, because I think that just brought in my I always tell people this when they ask me, but I've always had a curiosity for learning my whole life. And as a serial entrepreneur, because aside of the clubs, I did have other businesses. They are mainly in fitness and well-being, but I always found it fascinating why some entrepreneurs make it and some don't. And because I was always thirsty for learning, I decided that I was going to do my doctorate, but I wanted to do it in something that, I could really sustain the journey, because for anybody that's ever done it, it's probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do, ever. I mean, it is a test of resilience just to get
Yeah,
through the
imagine.
doctorate. And when I realised that my passion was to really understand how we could help entrepreneurs a lot more in their journey, I started to really join the dots and understand that for a lot of the people that are struggling in the entrepreneurial journey, it is coming down to resilience gaps. And I decided that resilience was going to where I was going to land, the research that I wanted to do. So yeah, I went off and did 6.5 years studying what makes resilient
Oh,
entrepreneurs.
wow.
And part of that journey, and this is a really true story, I went to a barbecue right as I started the doctorate, and I bumped into a guy who was a mindfulness expert.
Okay.
And I do believe that in the spirit of what the Buddhists would say, that when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, right? And this Buddhist underpinning of mindfulness really, really floated my boat. And when he was chatting to me all about, the benefits of mindfulness, I was like, my gosh, I think that could be quite interesting for developing resilience. And then you go to the literature and you realize that every single person and their dog talk about how mindfulness improves resilience, but nobody had ever tested the theory.
Oh, okay.
So my study was the first study to empirically look at whether or not mindfulness does actually improve resilience. And
Wow.
the rest became the journey, right? So finished the doctorate 2019, just as the pandemic started. And well, that was the graduation, but I finished a year before that. And what it's brought into my life is amazing, because the work that I do in resilience, for me, I've never done work that's more life-changing than the work that I do now.
Yeah. The great thing is it provides you a lifestyle, but also it's your career. I mean, just in the last 2 years that I've known you, your career has just gone boom. It's unreal. I mean, the places you're going. I mean, we'll talk about your invite to Ursa later, but you know what I mean. You've gone from a club owner on a small island to this almost world-renowned expert in resilience and driving the industry forward. So that. I mean, it's superb, isn't it? It just goes to show, though, if you want something and you want to learn and you want to develop, then the opportunities are out there. It's not about looking at someone and going, look what they've got. It's a matter of going, you can go and take it. It's interesting.
Well, you know what I think we should all learn from that, Ryan, is actually, weirdly, before the doctorate, I had a presence in the UK in the fitness and wellness industry, right? But when you then move to a small island, the world starts to feel like rather disconnected, right? But I've always had a growth mindset, which is part of becoming resilient, right? We've got to learn from other people. We've got to try things that don't work.
Yeah.
We've got to see that as something that we should welcome rather than dread, right? And for me, the real challenge of living on a small island is closing off your ecosystem to all these clever people in this incredible network. And it's funny about you saying if you want it bad enough, because I made a very discreet choice a couple of years ago that I wanted to be back visible, and I wanted to get right back to what I know lights my passion. And I'm living by my values, Ryan, which is what we work with people on when we're trying to build out resilience, because we often start with goals rather than values. And I got right back to what was important to me. And what's important to me is, after health, it's learning and travel. And for me to do that, I had to get out of the small ecosystem of being on this island, right?
Well, you're definitely doing that because you're on a flight nearly every day that I speak to you. So, so you're definitely doing that. So you've gone from this doctorate. You've obviously you've just sold your club, and now we're walking into this sort of We Talk Wellbeing, which obviously started as yourself, and it's growing now. I mean, I don't know how many staff you got now. You can tell us, but in terms of partners and stuff. So do you want to talk us through We Talk Wellbeing? What it's all about? What you're trying to get out of it?
Well, again, what's quite interesting that people don't maybe realise is that We Talk Wellbeing was a brand name that sat within Solgenic before I sold it. So we were doing a huge amount of corporate wellbeing, where we would take a large corporate and we would be their strategic partner to help them build out from the ground up their wellbeing strategy, a strategy that is actually a strategy rather than just a flash in the pan.
And there's quite a lot that do that, don't they? They'll throw in a bit of private. I mean, I see it all the time with the private medical stuff. Throw in private medical, and that's their corporate wellness.
It plays a part. We were doing, you're absolutely right. So we were doing a huge amount of corporate wellbeing, and then not just the strategy piece, but implementation with an intervention, and then monitoring that the whole way through, and getting to the other end where we could evaluate, look at distance travelled, and then reshape the strategy for moving forward. And we were getting a lot of success with that. And I think that's another message that I'd love to mention to people is corporate wellbeing in the fitness facility is not being exposed the way it could. It's a really big opportunity. And I think we need to do a lot more work there of engaging corporates to the point where they look at us first as a potential
I think the challenge there, Glenda, and you'll well know this, is very few people are qualified like you. And then I don't mean in terms of a doctorate and stuff like that, because I mean, that's above and beyond.
You don't need a doctorate for sure.
No, exactly. But I don't think they're qualified. And what tends to happen is, and this is my experience of going through the industry, because whenever a gym or fitness business tends to contact corporates, it's a sales interaction. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to sell gym memberships. Instead of creating a relationship where you embed yourself into their corporate ethos and you become their, like you've done with many, that you become their strategy host, where you're supporting the more than just this, come and get 10%, 20% off your membership. And I think, unfortunately, quite a lot of what we do as a fitness industry is all geared around sales.
Yeah.
Rather than looking, going, okay, let's have a look at the intervention. Let's look at how we can help these businesses drive their corporate wellbeing program, which is about engagement. It's about the mental wellbeing, all that sort of stuff. Now, we can also bring that back to say, like you're saying, they need the skill set to do that. So I guess coming on that, how would they get hold of that skill set? If they've just got fitness instructors, yes, we want the industry to get involved. They've just got fitness instructors, personal trainers. How would they then?
Well, if I just round the journey about, so obviously, just to finish and come into that, so We Talk Wellbeing are specialists in corporate wellbeing, yeah? Now, I think you're absolutely right, Ryan. Just to be clear, clubs that are out there is a massive opportunity to segment your product and offer something to corporate that is going to educate people, engage them, and empower their employees. And then off the back of something that you could build out, you can then sell memberships. Absolutely. You're absolutely spot on that we tend to try and do it the other way around. And there is a huge opportunity to help the corporate environment with their well-being. And I think that should be a community piece. So I would encourage all large corporates to go to their local fitness facility and see what they can provide. But we've got to be a lot more proactive there. And then it does raise the challenge that some people will be scared of that, and it's intimidating. We are a very highly unregulated part of the sector, wellbeing. There is a lot of fluffy wellbeing out there that is not based on concrete foundations, which is a big concern. And, what is the capacity in the team? So you're absolutely right. And what I would suggest, Ryan, is that for any club owner out there that's really interested in how they can embrace the notion of well-being and make it part of their ecosystem and a product improvement, they're going to have to think about how they build that capacity out, right? So that's now where we're starting to see the emergence of qualifications in wellbeing. And
well, I think that's really important because as an industry, we're not that brilliant at. I mean, let's be honest. A PT can go and get a brilliant training course for 4 or 5 grand. It covers all the great nutrition, or you can go get a Mickey Mouse one for 500 quid over a weekend and whatever. And unfortunately, we're allowing that to happen, and we have for decades. And I think the scary thing with this now is wellbeing is so much at its infancy. That we could potentially see a lot of that Mickey Mouse stuff coming in. And I think the important thing is, and this isn't just selling We Talk Wellbeing and you, Glenda. I think it's, but they need to speak to companies like yours and speak to people like you. I mean, there's not just you out there, obviously, but obviously they need to speak to people who know what this is all about and get the right processes in place.
I'm glad you mentioned processes, Ryan, as well, because I think there's 3 parts to this. It's absolutely, if there is a passion to embrace this part of the sector, which is going to be the biggest growth area for sure. Wellbeing and digital health are growing exponentially, right? So if people want to see that as a potential opportunity, which I'm hoping that our sector will grasp it, the first part of that is to educate your employees and build capacity in-house. So obviously, my company and other companies do that by way of building out qualifications and CPD for your staff to become a wellbeing coach. The second part of that, which I think we underestimate, is wellbeing can be simplified, and you can get a lot of expertise just purely by collaboration. So, for example, we know that sleep is a huge issue for our members. So you could be out there with a sleep expert supporting your club where you drive that type of education and awareness piece as a joint effort. So in every area in the whole of the UK, there are experts in different aspects of wellbeing that could be a really big opportunity for collaboration. Absolutely. And the third piece that you mentioned that I love when you talk about processes is there are simple ways you can start going on the wellbeing journey without the need for very long drawn out qualifications that gets your club moving into this area. For example, even just having a wellbeing section as part of your needs analysis that then becomes part of your induction, that then becomes part of your retention strategy. It could be a basic wellbeing questionnaire that then transcends into a process in the club where one of the first things that people ask people when they check in is, from a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel today, in terms of 10 being the best you've ever felt and 1 feeling like you struggle to get out of bed. Now, that's about building processes that are simple, that are consistent, that can help move you in towards these wellbeing conversations, right? So in actual fact, I wouldn't want to scare anybody today that wellbeing cannot be part of your journey, and it's a continuum. So it's about, where does that start, and then how do you build your capacity in-house to really then maybe compete against other companies for some of the work that's out there. And I would say that with, both a public health focus, community focus, and corporate focus, right?
I think the great thing is as well, like you're saying, this doesn't have to start with people going into outreach and trying to get companies involved and going and doing their corporate wellbeing program. This can start within your club with the current members that you've got in order to obviously improve retention, in order to improve the atmosphere within the club, how people feel, how people engage with your with your staff. It's there are some simple tricks, and obviously you teach them quite a lot in terms of how you engage with clients to make sure that we know they're happy, that there's communication going on, and we can pick up on the signs when someone needs further support, and I think that's the important thing. And
the other thing I love about this is we've got 2 other big benefits here, because if you looked at your general gym instructor ecosystem and then you looked at the PT ecosystem, there's quite a lot of burnout in those roles, right?
Yeah.
So if I was saying to people today, okay, think out the box and get that first mover advantage, because at the end of the day, it's quite an interesting idea that people think you can't be commercial when you're talking about well-being, because it's all about, you know, helping people. But, you know, we're running a business here, right? So it's got to be commercial as well for the club owner. But essentially, the big opportunity is this. It's a massive CPD opportunity to help those people that potentially are at risk of burnout because they do the same job hour by hour by hour. We know there's a problem if you teach 25 classes a week. We know there's a problem if you do 30 inductions a week. But if you spread out your well-being interactions around the team, it's an amazing CPD opportunity that can also help reduce the risk of burnout in these people, because they come off the physical tools when they do a wellbeing consultation, or they do what I think is even more ideal is the power of group, where they do a group wellbeing session on a subject like healthy consumption and the power of drinking water, or whatever it is, right? So that's a massive quick win here, is that essentially it's a CPD opportunity. The second thing that I think we're scared to talk about is it is definitely an income generator opportunity. Because
massive, absolutely massive opportunity this is for clubs across the country.
I mean, it could be a value add for sure, where you bring in a wellbeing coach, whether you spread that hours out amongst 4 people or whatever, and you have the equivalent of 1 full-time wellbeing coach. But in terms of the value add there, it's going to have a massive impact on retention and attrition. But you can also decide to bring that model together that is not much different to a PT model. And we know that PT is on the rise. We know that people are now spending more money than before on higher service, and actually because they're interested in that area. So the wellbeing provision could be the new PT provision.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the great thing is as well, you're hitting different markets. So the one thing whenever we go out to the businesses and I hear you talking, is the fact that no longer we're going after just that 15%. We don't need to sell this at just the people who've already got in our club. It's a great way of driving people in early doors, because I think the way you describe it is a lot of these people aren't ready for the fitness model as yet.
I think
but they will be ready
right.
for well-being. I don't know whether you want to pick up more on that, because I know it's something that you tell nearly every one of our clients when we talk.
I just think you're absolutely right, Ryan. At the end of the day, if you drew a little, continuum and a line from left to right, what about the people here that are pre-contemplators in the behavioural change process, who are pre-contemplating fitness, but there's something more urgent, like they're drinking too much alcohol, or their food intake is horrendous. They're living on sugar and caffeine, because I can tell you now, the average corporate individual, that's exactly what they're now doing. They're either living on sugar, fast food, or caffeine, right?
Yeah.
So there are some serious marginal gains to be had that then get somebody completely ready. And let's be frank, if they've came in and did a 12-session program in your club and you've made them feel so much better about themselves, and they've raised the dial even 1%, they're now ready to join a club. Whose club are they going to join?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the interesting point here as well is there's a lot of people that are in that boat that are sort of they're not ready. And if you think about whenever somebody's I don't know, they're overweight or they're feeling, the first thing they think about, diet. I need to go on a diet. That's quite often a common thing. It's not let's go and exercise, let's go join a gym. It's still let's hit the diet. So if you can hit that, but also take them on a mental well-being journey along that. So why they're eating like they are, how do they need to change, so change management, all those sorts of things. So then we look at their sleep, because they probably didn't realize that was a challenge. So all the way along, this change management's going. Now they're ready for the gym, and then we get them in the gym, we give them the program, and hopefully by that point we've done the job right, and they're in the right mental space as well. So that fitness journey, then they've also got the health and nutrition journey to go alongside that. So now they're living better. So they've not got this crash and burn scenario where they're going, I need to get healthy, go in the gym, it lasts for a month, and then they're off because they're too tired. Well, they're too tired because they're not sleeping or eating.
You know what I love, Ryan, about the whole ideology and the ethos around how we educate people on well-being. Now, there are other companies that might see it differently, right? But what I love about what we specifically do in this education piece is we say that when we take people on a well-being journey, there's 3 parts to the journey, right? The first part's awareness, right? Most people that are in your fitness clubs are unaware, whether we believe it or not, of exactly what it is that's stopping them getting to where they want to go. But they have all the wisdom. We just need a good coach to ask amazing questions, right? Yeah. So the first step is building awareness back, becoming very aware of yourself, right?
And to a lot of people, that's quite scary. So you need someone to help guide you do that. It's not everyone wants to be aware, because once you're aware, you obviously also know your
right. And this is quite interesting, because we're talking about behavioural change again, and some people become aware and they're not ready to do anything more. And that's okay, because again, and it is why ultimately when I said, as much as, you know, we don't need qualified wellbeing coaches to start your journey, because you can collaborate with experts. If you're serious about this journey, you will absolutely need to get people who know what they're doing, because it can be quite complex, right? So the first part is the awareness, but the second part, which we love, is when people start giving us the brave honesty piece. Because if you have your members relying on your personal trainer and relying on your gym instructors and can't do it without you, you're going to lose them anyway. Because the idea is we get them educated, engaged, and we empower people that despite the fact they can do it without you, because that's our goal, they don't want to because you were always with them.
Yeah.
And that's really empowering, right? So when they're bravely honest about their position, that's where you're going to get people more likely to do some habit change, right? Because they own it. And then the third part, which is the amazing part, is we start to see people take responsibility in the work that we do with them. They come up with the answers. They bring their wisdom to the fore. And it might be that they have the light bulb moment in session 2 where they'll say, do you know what? I live constantly on coffee. And that is bringing my energy down because of everything that, you know, we've talked about and what we've heard and the suggestions put forward. I'm now going to do something about that. Because for a lot of people, the reason why they're not achieving their fitness goals is nothing to do with the physical exercise that you gave them. It might be that their nutrition is terrible. It might be that they're not sleeping well. It might be that they're suffering from perceived levels of stress. And it's important about the education piece that if you're going to do well-being right, that there is a dedication to education, because it's critically important that we understand how to signpost this stuff when we know we're out with our boundaries, right? Our professional boundaries. Even with a mental health first aider qualification, you're not an expert in mental health. So we need to understand, you know, how we signpost to the right experts. And that's important.
Absolutely. And I think this whole piece is all around making sure that if we're going to go down this road and we're going to start putting this into clubs, it's about getting the right education. It's about using companies like We Talk Wellbeing to make sure that the coaches are trained and qualified, and they've got that they've got the understanding of what they're delivering, and also at what point that their expertise ends.
Yeah,
so like you said, they can signpost it onto other people. Now, coming on to that, that's quite an interesting point, Glenda, because obviously, what in order to get this right, obviously you're incredibly passionate and everything else. But what barriers do you think we've got in the way at the moment to taking the fitness business into this wellness side and getting it right?
Well, obviously, we're aware there's quite a few at the minute, and I really, really do get it. There's a couple. So one that you wouldn't be surprised me saying is with the energy crisis, costs on the rise. We know that sometimes when we're up against that, the easy thing to do is to stop investment, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not, being honest, if you want a equivalent of one full-time wellbeing coach in your facility, you're going to have to budget for that. And they're not going to make money on day one. So essentially, that is a leap of faith. And I think that is a barrier at the minute, that just like when we see marketing spend reduced because of other demands. So I think that we can't fail to see that. Something that's going to surprise you that I do want to talk about is I think that the challenge is that we have wrongly sometimes labelled well-being as mental health.
Yeah.
Well-being's mental health is just one part of well-being. And I think that scares a lot of people because they don't want to jump into mental health. Now, that mental health piece is really interesting because that's where I would say you might want to be collaborating and getting extra support. But well-being's so much more than just mental health. And I want to risk being a tiny bit controversial for a minute.
Never.
Because the thing is, Ryan, there's also a continuum of mental health. And we know that for a lot of people, the reason why they don't feel great in their mind is because they don't feel good in their body. And the more we can get people to move, they will instantly feel better in their mind. Sometimes we can try and think our way out of thinking, and it's not always great. So that's where the fitness industry is perfectly placed. Because if we can get people psychologically safe working with us, we can educate some good grounding lifestyle change.
Sorry,
and then no worries.
Let me
agrees.
We'll have to do this. I've just got someone at the door. Sorry, 2 seconds.
No worries.
Well, I'll cut this out. 2 seconds. Sorry, Glenda, that's always the way.
Don't be silly.
It's because bloody Christmas, isn't it? Whew, running upstairs. Right, sorry. We'll have to cut that bit out. Shall I do that question again? Sorry. Let me get my breath back. Right. So I can run upstairs. Breath gone. You'd think I'd be fit after 4 months in the gym, wouldn't you? But, okay. So yeah, Glenn, what you were saying is obviously fantastic. Obviously, there's a way forward for the business, and there's a way forward for well-being. But there's obviously barriers in there that we need to consider. So what would you say that those are?
Well, obviously, Ryan, I think there's the obvious one that, we have got some big challenges ahead in the next 12 months in terms that relates pure and simply to overheads, right? The energy crisis, rising costs, inflation, and people are tempted at times like that to avoid certain investment. And even if you wanted one full-time equivalent wellbeing coach in a club, it's going to take some investment, not massive, but still some, in terms of education and some CPD time. Yeah. So I don't think we can underestimate that. We see that all the time where people will take their marketing spend out because of demands everywhere else. So I think that's definitely going to be a challenge. The second one, and I do want to say it because it can be controversial, but I think it has to be said, is I think that we scare the sector sometimes because we sometimes think of well-being as mental health.
Yeah.
But mental health is just one aspect of well-being. And where I think we're beautifully placed to help here is for 8 out of 10 people, sometimes overthinking, thinking our way out of thinking is not fantastic. We need to be changing it completely and changing the state, right? Which means movement. And we're the best at that, right?
But not just movement as well. I mean, all these things you were talking about before, Glenn, in terms of behavioural change. Yes, movement, absolutely. And I'm a huge advocate of that. Obviously, you know, my chronic fatigue, that I can quite easily go 6 months without exercising because I feel so poorly and so tired.
Yeah.
But when you force yourself to get out there and exercise, yes, my body doesn't improve. I don't feel any better physically quite often, but mentally it makes a huge difference. Absolutely. So I'm a different person when I'm exercising, although I'm still as tired as I always am.
But you mentioned lifestyle change, Ryan. So, for example, this might sound so basic to a club owner that they would think people wouldn't pay for this, but people absolutely do want to start that journey with baby steps. So it could be as much as habit stacking, where you take a group on a walking club outdoors so that they're embracing mindfulness without even realizing it's mindfulness. And then the back of that, they feel better so that you get that mental health positive benefit, and you've habit stacked it without it being deep, without talking about mental health, and it's a win-win, right? So all I'm saying about the mental health challenge and why it can be a barrier is we've got to be really careful, because well-being is much more than just mental health. And again, I think that clubs shouldn't be scared, but it's about understanding that when their people are trained, that you've got that support for the people that are signposted as in need of more clinical support. Because I just want to make the point and labour on it. We are never, as a sector, ever going to become that clinical solution.
And neither should we ever.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's. I mean, people go to university like you, have doctorates, have master's degrees, have you know what I mean? They're the experts in mental health, and I also think if you try and do things like that and you go too far down that line, you can actually cause more problems than you.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
but
just
wellness
making
isn't
the
that.
point. It could be a barrier, but I think that people should, we should open up the conversations that what we're talking about here in wellbeing is healthy lifestyle habit change, of which positive mental health is just one dimension.
Absolutely.
And when it gets to the point where you cannot help maybe 3 out of 10 people, your in-house wellbeing coach is being suitably trained to understand how to deal with that.
And I think the thing is as well. I mean, there's barriers there that people need to consider, but they also need to look at it from, if they want to go purely commercial. There are clubs already out there. I mean, obviously, we've been speaking to a number of them, generally leisure trusts, that are really taking this on and effectively saying their businesses are now well-being businesses. Their businesses are wellness businesses, not gyms.
Yeah.
And you sort of, if as a club owner you're sitting there going, I don't need this and whatever, you might actually find yourself at the back of the queue as everybody else is embracing it, going, we need to put some level of this into our business. Now, like you say, there's various levels as to which you can go with this. But if you don't put any of it in, you're going to find yourself very much on the outside of the ring, in essence, of what's going on in our industry, because I think there is so much going forward in that. I mean,
I just think, Ryan, we need to know our lane though, right? If you're saying that your lane is CrossFit and it's all you ever want to do, that's the message. Be clear on the message. If you see well-being as a great opportunity from a ethical perspective, we owe it to our members and to our employees that we do it right. And the other barrier in this sector is it can be quite overwhelming because well-being is complex and it's not always brilliantly understood, and it's not regulated in the way, you know, I would love. So I think another barrier that we should talk about is resources that's linked to investment. But again, my company and other companies, it's why you're seeing the emergence of off-the-shelf wellbeing programs. And I absolutely think for the average club out there who wants to go on this journey, the answer might be to partner with a company that has got an off-the-shelf wellbeing solution. So
let's talk about yours then, Glenda.
Sorry, buddy.
Let's talk about yours then, in terms of what We Talk Wellbeing is offering at class. I mean, it wasn't necessarily something that you were going to go through today, but I think that's really important to understand in a quick nutshell what the sort of recalibrate is, what you guys can deliver for a club.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, I'm very proud of the partnership that We Talk Wellbeing has got with Wellbeing People, who maybe a lot of people would know who they are. A UK-based company that were quite well known for the health kiosk. You know, where you might see that in Gatwick Airport, where you can go up to the kiosk and take a wellbeing score, and you know, have a look at your overall wellbeing measures. But in a joint collaboration, there has been the build out of a complete wellbeing solution called Recalibrate. And in essence, Recalibrate allows you to, under license, go from either one-to-one wellbeing coaching to a small group of semi-private, which the club owners will understand, group of 1 on 4, to what I think is the absolutely brilliant optimal idea is where we work 1 on 12 with a group. It's 12 1-hour sessions. Every week involves a progress experiment, a really small raise of the dial. It's all around healthy habit lifestyle change. And the idea for me of why we were so passionate about that is because for me, this is going to raise that penetration rate that you talked about, getting people before they're fully ready to maybe do an intense fitness program. Let's get them in, educate people, engage them, get them interested, and empower them to go further on the journey.
And the great thing is, this is already designed. You can come in, train their teams. This is how you deliver it, and bang, they can put this program into their club. And I think that's what is important about this. Rather than people having to send off their staff to go do 3, 6, 12-month courses and all this sort of stuff, there's a program that's out there that people can just literally buy into. You guys come do the training, it gets launched, it gets pushed out, and then the support's there. And then obviously we're going to talk about technology. And I mean, obviously that's got its own app and everything else that goes with it as well. So it's easy to manage.
Yeah, every user gets their own discrete login so that they get access to the platform for a year once it's purchased, and they can go back in and out and practice different experiments, because each week there's the progress experiment and they choose from 3. So it's all about empowering the person. When you feel under control and you feel that you control the controllables, you are definitely more likely to want to repeat it, right? So yeah, it comes fully with digital access and all of that nudge theory follow up in terms of what is drip fed to the person that's going through Recalibrate. So it's a really, and something that you said, Ryan, just to pick up on, you don't start your career as an advanced PT. You might start as a level 2 fitness instructor. It's no different with wellbeing, right? Yes, do I want to see every club in 10 years have a wellbeing coach that's got a proper qualification like our health and wellbeing improvement diploma? Yes, I do. But do I, in the short term, want to see people that go through a shorter course to become a wellbeing coach and use an off-the-shelf program? That's maybe midway on that journey. And it is a continuum, and it's where the club is ready and, you know, where they're at that point. But my biggest message today is, for all the barriers that we talk about, I think that for such a huge opportunity, I'd love to think that club owners don't feel so scared.
No, absolutely. I think that's the key, isn't it? Is club owners, a lot of them, they're so used to being, and obviously we work with a lot of them, so used to being in this field, and now suddenly something else has come quite quickly, and it's like, how do we get on board? What is it about? How do I now bring this into my model to make it work? And they're trying to figure it out, when a lot of the times they don't need to figure it out. That's the whole point. It's already there. There's people like you, like We Talk Wellbeing with the Recalibrate program, that you can literally bring that in. All the training's there, all the support's there, and they can. And obviously, once that's in, then how they develop and grow and whatever in it, that then is up to them, isn't it? It's working with you guys. You can develop that further and grow it. But I think the opportunities are there for people to bring wellness and well-being into the clubs without a huge amount of understanding at this moment in time. So work with the right people, they can bring it in without, and then they'll obviously learn the understanding and allow that to grow. So we'll put all the details at the end if anybody does want to speak to you about the Recalibrate stuff, because I think it's an amazing program. So absolutely, every club in the country should be ringing in. Not that you need any more work, but
right.
you got enough as it is, but everybody should be giving you a call. So just one thing I did want to pick up on, because you do a lot of work with various technology companies and stuff like that. So digital health, in terms of where do you think that's going?
Well, I'm very honoured because I get to work with a company called Zois, who are digital health experts, and I'm very blessed that I get to see at the coalface, the amazing advancements that are happening in digital health right now. And a couple of maybe headliners, data sharing and privacy is a big concern in the sector. So understanding who owns the data and what those legal agreements look like are potential barriers at the minute. So that's a lot of the landscape that the digital health companies are navigating to make sure that they can get these legal contracts over the line with corporate organizations, for example, or intermediary contracts. But in actually what's out there, we've got such a huge amount of noise because there's that many apps being built. And there is a big variance, right? There's been a bit of disillusionment about how effective they are. And I'm just going to put that right out there, because maybe an amazing app might have 20% engagement, and that would be like the best you can see.
Wow.
And you might think that's terrible, but it's still going to have an impact for that 20%. So to me, the message I'd like to say is, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is an absolute place for digital health as part of an overall wellbeing strategy. Because one thing that we get with digital health is we can reach more people, right?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be for everybody, but there are people who want it, and there are people who do get a lot from it. And I think if you think it's your only solution, it's not going to be the silver bullet. But alongside what else you do, I think that it's a really exciting time, because there's such cool products out there. And, these products are working really hard at the minute on how to improve engagement and how to get it to stick. And, what we can do from the gamification perspective to make it more enjoyable. And, I've got the pleasure of working with people like Headspace, the mental health and wellbeing app, True Connect, and the fitness app. And essentially, there is so many good products out there, but there's a lot of noise.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's still in that massive growth phase where it's like, I think I read something like 70,000 new fitness apps come to market every year.
Well, there's 500,000 apps now in the App Store, 90,000 mental health apps at the minute. Wow. And that's a lot of noise to cut through. And I guess, obviously, that accelerated during COVID, but we got a lot of failures, if you want to call it a failure, who came up and disappeared during the pandemic. But I guess if I was a club owner out there, what I would say to you is digital health is the #1 trend. It's been in the number 5 for the last 3 years in the global rankings of health and fitness trends. It's not going away. My advice is look for a provider who can give you a white label solution that can help bolster your offering without you having to go and invest large sums to never get a return. You're not going to compete with the big ones now. So if you're a club owner out there, that's the advice I give, is don't spend 100 grand building your own. Find a partner who can white label and also allow you, because there are out there now, that will allow you to put some of your content on the app alongside their really cool content.
That's the key, isn't it? Let the experts do what you want and pick and choose where you want to put it into your offering.
But there is an absolute place for it. And I think anybody that's scared that it takes them away from the physical infrastructure of the club, whilst I think that's noble of you to consider it, it's an unnecessary concern, because what the digital's allowing you to do is actually the opposite, is to keep them connected and you in their mind when they're not in your club.
Absolutely. I think that massive growth of digital and in terms of people switching from the brick and mortar to digital was a pandemic thing. I don't see this huge growth. I know some people still expect it to go, but
it's definitely a complementary strategy, though, Ryan. And there are people who expect you to be able to deliver something there, and that's why I think it's about boxing smart. Partnering in with people that have already got that huge infrastructure who can offer you a solution at a reasonable price that is definitely going to be a value add for the member.
Oh, definitely. And I think the thing is as well, I mean, a lot of club owners that I speak to are worried because obviously they have an app with their CRM system, they have an app with nutrition or whatever. But the thing is, people are used to having apps on their phone. I mean, God forbid how many I've got on mine. So it's not a hindrance. I think it is a benefit if they've got these great. I mean, you only have to look at. I mean, you work with True Connect now. When you go in and have a look at that, it's an incredible system. It really is
phenomenal.
The benefits and everything it's got in there, it really is, and a very, very impressive app. And I would implore anyone to say otherwise. I mean, I would definitely, as a club owner, go and have a look and see whether you could bring something like that on, because it would add huge value to your facility. But like you say, no one is going to be a member of your club, suddenly sign up to True Connect and go, "Oh, I'm leaving now."
But here's the thing, right? No, exactly. And here's the other thing that's super interesting. We've not even talked about what I would call the more clinical digital health apps. And I'll just give you an example. You're now seeing digital physio that stops people even having to ever. What we found with digital physio is that it triages 8 out of 10 people who didn't need a physio.
Wow.
Because they get some remedial exercises that instantly improves their position, which is going to hit your bottom line. One of my next favourites that I think is just incredible because of the work that it does is an app called Skin Vision that essentially scans your moles.
Wow.
I mean, there's so many great things that are coming out that have got utility. So, you know, we're also seeing things like digital doctor, where you don't need to go there physically. That is going to cut down time. The other one that I think the corporates are going to be fascinated by is digital optician, where you can have your eye test done. You don't need the eye test because you've had your app access and it tells the people that need an eye test. Well, that's all about saving money, because that is one area where you would be shocked at the amount of money that's been spent there, where people didn't physically actually need that intervention at that time.
Yeah. Well, I know if you have a look at the health insurance world, that's all going as much digital.
Well, that's my point. There's so many amazing products out there now that
Vitality works on a virtual GP now, and they guarantee within 48 hours you. And That's the great thing. It's not just about the fitness apps. It's all these clinical apps.
And I think that there is a place for some of them again in our fitness industry. So, I think a club who has got maybe a premium type membership who then wants to offer a digital physio app could be a nice collaboration. I guess the point I'm making, Just Look Wellbeing, no size fits all. It's about you understanding your members, know your customer, and match the right solution.
Absolutely. But the great thing is that there are the solutions out there. People just need to look outside the box and not look inside their club and go, I need to add a new piece of kit. Because quite often that's what you see. Membership starts dropping or retention or whatever. I'm going to go spend 15 grand on a couple of pieces of kit, when actually you might be better served spending 15. That way, it wouldn't even be 15 grand, but I'll be better served bringing an app in or bringing an added service in, whether that be the well-being, whether it be something like True Connect, whether it be, do you know what I mean, the physio app. Those sorts of things suddenly add value without huge cost.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to start looking at boxing clever. I mean, I know it's not something you're in, but you only have to look at the way the sort of Web3 and the VR. Now, that isn't ready for fitness yet. It's getting there.
Again, we've got to keep our eyes open. This is, for me, one of the most critical chapters in the fitness industry's life that I've seen since I've been in it. And I think that it's a very measured response to understand the potential that wellbeing brings to our sector. And if we don't take it, it worries me who would.
Yeah, exactly. Which, it's probably not the right people. Now, just finishing off on that. What's next for you now? I know you've got potentially a really exciting year next year. I mean, you're presenting at URSA, so that's a nice one for you. So, what?
Really excited about that. Really excited. I've got the launch of my new book, Resilient as Fudge, in the new year, which I'm mega excited about because it's a very visual book, and the picture tells the story of the concept, and there's 52 visuals for a concept for every week of the year. So I'm excited about that. I've got lots of travel. I'm excited about what you and I are doing, Ryan, because the podcast has new sponsors and we've got some incredible guests coming on. Just some incredibly impactful work that We Talk Wellbeing is about to do with some seriously awesome brands who want to make the difference for their people.
Yeah, well, I've seen you having various conversations. I won't mention them because you haven't. So, but yeah, there's some big organisations been working with on that. So it's fantastic, and I think next year this will truly explode for you. So I'm going to see if I can get out to URSA to see you speak, but that's another thing. We'll see what we can do.
That would be lovely, Ryan, and I appreciate your support. I always do. It's been an absolute pleasure to be, doing this together. And I think because it's Christmas, I want to thank the people that tune in and take a listen. And I really just want to say, if people have got any questions about, anything to do with wellbeing and, what that might mean for them, do reach out to me.
Oh, absolutely. You're all over LinkedIn. They can get hold of your email. They can get hold of your business. We Talk Wellbeing. They should go and have a look at the site. So absolutely. Now, I think it's a great pleasure to have you on, just you, Glenda, rather than us talking to a guest. So appreciate your time this morning. Obviously, we're going into this. This will land. It'll be just after Christmas when this lands. So I wish people a Merry Christmas from past. Have an awesome New Year to everybody, because there won't be one until afterwards. And we will see people bright and early in the new year. So appreciate your time this morning, Glenda. And obviously we will catch up soon.
Thank you, Ryan. Much appreciated, buddy.
Cool. Nice one. End recording.